pluralism, it will give up those hard-won freedoms voluntarily. Freedom of speech encompasses precisely the freedom to annoy, to ridicule, and to offend. If it doesn't, it is hollow. Inoffensive speech doesn't need the protection of a constitutional amendment. The instant that any personal ideology is considered off-limits for critical examination and even ridicule, freedom of speech has been replaced by an ideological straitjacket. Westerners seem to grasp this easily when it comes to affronts to Christianity, even when they are as sharp-edged and offensive as Andres Serrano's Piss Christ or Chris Ofili's dung and pornography-encrusted Holy Virgin Mary. But the same clarity of thought doesn't seem to carry over to an Islamic context. Yet that is where it is needed the most. The cartoon controversy, insignificant and even silly as it may have been in its origins, grew to be an increasingly serious challenge to Western notions of pluralism and freedom of speech. The newspaper that originally printed the cartoons, Jyllands-Posten, the Danish Prime Minister Anders Fogh Rasmussen, generally limited themselves to saying essentially that they were sorry if Muslims took offense and that none was intended. But calls from Muslims to go farther and punish those responsible, as the Arab interior ministers demanded, or to treat the cartoons as a human rights violation, as a Belgian imam demanded, continued. Even the European Union castigated the Danes for mishandling the controversy, apparently oblivious to the fact that to place Mohammed and Islam beyond criticism and even beyond lampooning would be just as dangerous for a free society as the idea that the beloved leader of North Korea or dialectical materialism is above criticism. Indeed, it would be death for a free society. The organization of the Islamic Conference had decided at a meeting in Mecca in December 2005 to use the cartoons as an abject lesson in the perils of Western secularism. Muslim cartoon rage was not spontaneous, but it spread quickly all across the Muslim world. At least 139 people were killed and 823 were injured in the international cartoon riots, and the cartoonists now live under death threats. Death to blasphemers. Nor was cartoon rage unique. In September 2004, Dutch filmmaker Theo van Gogh's film Submission aired on Dutch TV. The brainchild of an ex-Muslim member of the Dutch Parliament, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, Submission decried the mistreatment of Muslim women and even featured images of battered women wearing see-through robes that exposed their breasts, with verses from the Quran written on their bodies. On November 2, 2004, Van Gogh was shot dead on an Amsterdam street by Mohamed Bouyeri, a Muslim who, after shooting Van Gogh several times, stabbed him repeatedly, slit his throat with a butcher knife, and left a note on the body containing verses from the Quran and threats to other Dutch public figures who opposed the flood of Muslim immigrants into the Netherlands. This kind of murder has ample precedent in the Islamic world. In 1947, Islamic radicals murdered Iranian lawyer Ahmad Khazravi in court, where he was defending himself against charges that he had attacked Islam. 4 years later, members of the same radical Muslim group, Fadayan-e-Islam, assassinated Iranian Prime Minister Haji Ali Razmara after a group of Muslim clerics issued a fatwa calling for his death. In 1992, the Egyptian writer Faraj Foda was murdered by Muslims enraged at his apostasy from Islam, another offense for which traditional Islamic law prescribes the death penalty. Foda's countryman, the Nobel Prize-winning novelist Naguib Mahfouz, was stabbed in 1994 after accusations of blasphemy. Under Pakistan's blasphemy laws, many non-Muslims have been arrested, tortured and sentenced to die on the slimmest of evidence. And of course there is the Ayatollah Khomeini's notorious death fatwa against the novelist Salman Rushdie. Van Gogh no doubt intended Submission to be provocative and even insulting. The great-grandson of Vincent van Gogh's brother, he was a well-known and controversial gadfly on the Dutch scene. In the past, he had criticized Jews and Christians with enough vehemence to elicit formal complaints. Even Hirsi Ali acknowledged that the criticism of Van Gogh was legitimate. But when someone has to die for his worldview, what he may have done wrong is no longer the issue. That's when we have to stand up for our basic rights. Otherwise, we are just reinforcing the killer and conceding that there was a good reason to kill this person. defending freedom of speech. The free world should have stood resolutely with Denmark.